A millionaire uncovers wife's affair with her best friend, but no one expected what happened next. The night was thick with tension, the kind that clung to the skin like a heavy fog. Omar stood in the dimly lit study of his luxurious mansion, the weight of the world pressing down on his shoulders. He had always prided himself on being a man of integrity, a successful businessman with a loving wife. But tonight, everything was about to change. As he sifted through the papers on his desk, a photograph slipped from the stack and fluttered to the floor. Omar bent down to pick it up, his heart racing as he recognized the smiling faces captured in the frame. It was his wife, Nadia, laughing joyfully with her best friend, Sarah, but there was something unsettling about the way they were looking at each other, an intimacy that sent a chill down his spine. The blood rushed to his head as he recalled the late-night phone calls, the whispered conversations he'd overheard. What was going on between them, he thought, his mind racing with possibilities. The air felt electric, charged with the unspoken truths that lingered just out of reach. Suddenly, the door creaked open, and Nadia stepped inside, her expression brightening at the sight of him. "Omar, I didn't expect you to be home so early," she said, her voice light and cheerful. But Omar could see the flicker of something in her eyes, a hint of fear, perhaps. He held up the photograph, his voice steady but laced with tension. "What's this, Nadia? Why are you so close to Sarah?" Nadia's smile faltered, and for a moment, the room was silent. The air thick with unspoken words. Omar's heart raced as he waited for her response, the question hanging between them like a loaded gun. But before she could answer, a loud knock echoed through the house, shattering the moment. Omar's pulse quickened. Who could it be at this hour? Little did he know, the answers he sought would unravel a web of deceit that would change everything. Omar was a man of stature, known in the business world for his sharp mind and keen instincts. At 35, he had built a successful empire, but it was his family that he cherished most. Nadia was his rock, the woman who had stood by him through thick and thin. They had a beautiful home, a life that many envied, and yet, beneath the surface, cracks were beginning to show. As he looked at Nadia, he couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. She had been distant lately, her laughter less frequent, her smiles more forced. The late nights at work, the sudden trips to visit her family, Omar had brushed them off as mere coincidences, but now doubt gnawed at him. Nadia had always been close to Sarah, but their friendship had taken on a new intensity in recent months. Omar had noticed the way they exchanged glances, the way Sarah lingered a little too long during their gatherings. It was a subtle shift, but one that had not gone unnoticed by him. As the knock at the door echoed again, Omar felt a surge of anxiety. He had to confront Nadia to uncover the truth before it consumed him. "Nadia, we need to talk," he said, his voice firm but gentle. She hesitated, her eyes darting to the door. "Can it wait? I'm sure it's just a delivery or something." But Omar shook his head, determination flooding his veins. "No, it can't wait. I need to know what's going on between you and Sarah." Nadia's expression shifted, a flicker of panic crossing her face. "Omar, please." But before she could finish, the door swung open, revealing a figure standing in the shadows. It was Khalid, Omar's trusted friend and business partner, his face pale and serious. "Omar, we need to talk. It's urgent." Omar's heart sank. The urgency in Khalid's voice sent a chill down his spine. "What is it?" he asked, his mind racing with possibilities. Khalid stepped inside, closing the door behind him. "It's about Nadia. You need to see this." Khalid's expression was grave as he pulled out his phone, his hands trembling slightly. "I didn't want to believe it, Omar, but I have proof. You need to see this." Omar's heart raced as he took the phone, his mind racing with dread. The screen lit up, revealing a video clip that made his stomach churn. It showed Nadia and Sarah laughing and whispering together in a dimly lit bar, their faces close, their chemistry undeniable. The laughter echoed in Omar's ears, but it was the way they looked at each other that struck him the hardest. It was more than friendship. It was a connection that he had never imagined. The blood drained from his face as the realization hit him like a punch to the gut. "Is this real?" Omar whispered, his voice barely audible. "Are they together?" Khalid nodded, his eyes filled with sympathy. "I'm so sorry, Omar. I thought you should know before it went any further. I didn't want you to be blindsided." Omar felt the world tilt beneath him. Everything he thought he knew about his marriage, about Nadia, was crumbling. "How long has this been going on?" he demanded, his voice rising. "I don't know," Khalid replied, his tone cautious. "But I've seen them together more than once. I thought it was just a phase, but now..." Omar's mind raced, the pieces of the puzzle falling into place. The late nights, the secretive phone calls, the way Nadia had been avoiding him. It all made sense now, and the betrayal cut deeper than he could have imagined. "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" Omar asked, his voice shaking with anger and hurt. "I didn't want to believe it myself," Khalid admitted, his gaze dropping. "But I couldn't keep it from you any longer. You deserve to know the truth." Omar felt a surge of rage and heartbreak. He had trusted Nadia with everything, and now it felt like the ground had been pulled out from under him. "I need to confront her," he said, his voice firm. "I can't let this go unanswered." Khalid placed a hand on his shoulder, concern etched on his face. "Just be careful, Omar. You don't know how she'll react." But Omar was beyond caution. The betrayal ignited a fire within him, and he was determined to get answers. "I'll handle it," he replied, his voice steady. "I need to know why." With that, he stormed out of the study, his heart pounding in his chest. He had to find Nadia and confront her about the affair. The truth was waiting, and he was ready to face it, no matter the cost. Omar stormed through the mansion, his heart racing with a mix of anger and betrayal. Each step felt heavier than the last as he made his way to the living room, where he found Nadia sitting on the couch, her expression brightening at his arrival. "Omar, you're home early," she exclaimed, her voice cheerful but laced with an undercurrent of tension. He clenched his fists, fighting to keep his emotions in check. "We need to talk, Nadia," he said, his voice steady but firm. Her smile faltered, and she looked at him with concern. "What's wrong?" "Don't play games with me," he snapped, the frustration bubbling to the surface. "I saw the video, Nadia. I know about you and Sarah." Nadia's face went pale, her eyes widening in shock. "What video? What are you talking about?" Omar stepped closer, his heart pounding. "The one where you're laughing and flirting with her at the bar. How long has this been going on?" Nadia's expression shifted from shock to panic. "Omar, please, let me explain." "Explain what?" he demanded, his voice rising. "That you've been lying to me. That you've been unfaithful." Tears welled in her eye, and she shook her head. "It's not what you think. Sarah and I are just friends. We were celebrating her promotion." "Celebrating?" Omar scoffed, disbelief flooding his voice. "It looked like more than just a celebration to me." Nadia stood up, her hands trembling. "You don't understand. I was going through a tough time, and Sarah was there for me. It didn't mean anything." "Didn't mean anything?" Omar echoed, his voice thick with emotion. "You were intimate with her, Nadia. How can you say it didn't mean anything?" The tension in the room escalated, and Omar could feel the walls closing in around him. He had never seen Nadia like this, desperate, pleading, and yet he couldn't shake the feeling of betrayal that coursed through him. Just then, the doorbell rang, cutting through the charged atmosphere. Omar's heart sank. "Who is it?" he asked, his voice low. I don't know, Nadia replied, her eyes darting nervously. Omar took a deep breath, trying to steady himself. Stay here. I'll get it. As he opened the door, he was met with the last person he expected. Sarah stood there, her expression a mix of guilt and defiance. Omar, we need to talk, she said, her voice steady, but filled with tension. Omar felt a surge of anger. Talk? After what you've done? Sarah stepped inside, her eyes darting to Nadia, who stood frozen in place. I know you're upset, but you need to hear me out. Why should I? Omar shot back, his voice rising. You've betrayed me, both of you. Nadia's voice trembled as she interjected. Omar, please, let her explain. We can't just jump to conclusions. But Omar was beyond reason. The betrayal felt like a knife twisting in his gut, and he was determined to confront the truth, no matter how painful it might be. Omar stood in the doorway, his heart racing as he faced Sarah. The air was thick with tension, and he could feel the weight of the moment pressing down on him. What could you possibly say that would make this any better? He demanded, his voice laced with anger. Sarah took a deep breath, her expression shifting from defiance to vulnerability. Omar, I never meant for this to happen. It started as a friendship, but things got complicated. Nadia was struggling, and I was just trying to help her. Help her? Omar scoffed, disbelief flooding his voice. By crossing the line? By betraying me? Nadia stepped forward, her eyes pleading. Omar, please listen. It wasn't just about us. I was feeling lost, and Sarah was there for me when I needed someone. It didn't mean I stopped loving you. Omar felt a surge of confusion. So what? You thought it was okay to seek comfort in her arms? To share something so intimate? Nadia's voice trembled as she replied, I didn't plan for it to happen. It just did. I was vulnerable, and Sarah was my best friend. I thought I could trust her. The revelation hit Omar like a punch to the gut. You thought you could trust her? He echoed, his voice thick with emotion. What about me? What about our marriage? Sarah stepped closer, her eyes filled with regret. Omar, I never wanted to hurt you. I care about both of you. But the truth is, I've developed feelings for Nadia too. It's complicated. Omar's world tilted on its axis. Everything he thought he knew was unraveling before his eyes. Feelings? You both have feelings for each other? Nadia nodded, tears streaming down her face. I didn't want him to admit it, but it's true. I was confused, and I didn't know how to handle it. I love you, Omar, but I also care about Sarah. The weight of her words crashed over him like a tidal wave. So what does that mean for us? He asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Sarah interjected. We need to figure this out together. I know it sounds crazy, but maybe we can find a way to make this work. Omar felt a mix of anger and despair. Make what work? A love triangle? You think I can just accept this? Nadia reached for him, her eyes pleading. Omar, please. I want to be honest with you. I don't want to lose you, but I can't deny what I feel for Sarah either. The room fell silent, the weight of the moment hanging heavily in the air. Omar felt his heart shatter as he processed the reality of the situation. Everything he had built, everything he had believed in, was crumbling around him. Everything I thought was true was a lie, he whispered, the pain evident in his voice. As he turned away, the enormity of the betrayal washed over him. He needed time to think, to process the chaos that had erupted in his life. Just give me some space, he said, his voice breaking. I can't deal with this right now. With that, he walked away, leaving Nadia and Sarah standing in the living room, their expressions a mix of regret and uncertainty. The path ahead was unclear, and Omar knew that the choices he made in the coming days would change everything. Omar paced the length of his study, his mind a whirlwind of emotions. Anger, betrayal, confusion. Each feeling crashed over him like waves against a rocky shore. He couldn't believe what he had just learned. The woman he loved, the woman he had built a life with, was entangled in a web of deceit with her best friend. He glanced at the photograph of Nadia and Sarah on his desk. Their smiles now a painful reminder of the trust that had been shattered. How could this happen? He muttered to himself, frustration boiling within him. As the sun began to set, casting long shadows across the room, Omar felt a sense of urgency. He needed answers, and he needed them fast. He couldn't let this situation spiral out of control. He had to confront both Nadia and Sarah again, but this time, he would be prepared. He picked up his phone and dialed Khalid's number. "I need your help," he said when his friend answered. "Can you come over?" "Of course. I'll be there in a few minutes," Khalid replied, sensing the gravity in Omar's voice. As he hung up, Omar's mind raced with possibilities. He needed to understand the depth of Nadia and Sarah's relationship. Were they truly in love? Or was it just a fleeting moment of weakness? And what did that mean for his marriage? Moments later, Khalid arrived, his expression serious. "What's going on, Omar?" Omar took a deep breath, trying to steady himself. "I found out about Nadia and Sarah. They've been involved." Khalid's eyes widened in shock. "I had no idea. I thought it was just a friendship." "It's more than that," Omar replied, his voice heavy with emotion. "Nadia admitted she has feelings for Sarah. I don't know what to do." Khalid placed a hand on Omar's shoulder, offering support. "You need to confront them again. You deserve to know the truth, and you need to set boundaries." Omar nodded, determination flooding his veins. "You're right. I can't let this go unanswered. I need to know if there's a future for us or if it's time to walk away." As they prepared to face the women, Omar felt a mix of fear and resolve. He had to confront the reality of his marriage, no matter how painful it might be. "Let's do this," he said, his voice steady. "I need to know where we stand." They made their way back to the living room, where Nadia and Sarah were still standing, their expressions a mix of anxiety and anticipation. Omar took a deep breath, steeling himself for the confrontation that lay ahead. "Listen," he began, his voice firm. "We need to talk about what's happening between the four of us. I can't keep pretending everything is okay." Nadia and Sarah exchanged glances, the tension palpable in the air. Omar could see the fear in their eyes, but he knew he had to push forward. "I need to understand what this means for our future," he continued, his heart pounding. "Are you two in love? Is there a chance for us? Or is this the end?" The room fell silent, the weight of his words hanging heavily in the air. Omar felt a sense of urgency, knowing that the answers he sought would determine the course of his life. The tension in the room was palpable as Omar stood before Nadia and Sarah, his heart pounding in his chest. He could feel the weight of their gazes, the uncertainty hanging in the air like a thick fog. This was the moment he had been dreading, yet he knew it was necessary. Nadia took a step forward, her voice trembling. "Omar, please. I know this is hard for you, but we need to be honest about our feelings." Sarah nodded, her expression serious. "We didn't plan for this to happen. It just evolved, but I care about both of you, and I want to find a way to make this work." Omar felt a surge of anger. "Make what work? A relationship built on betrayal? You think I can just accept this?" Nadia's eyes filled with tears. "I never wanted to hurt you, Omar. I love you, but I also have feelings for Sarah. I'm so confused." "Confused?" Omar echoed, his voice rising. "You think that's an excuse? You've shattered my trust, and now you want me to just accept it?" Sarah stepped in, her voice calm but firm. Omar, we're not asking you to accept it right away. We just want to talk about it. We need to figure out what this means for all of us. Omar shook his head, frustration boiling over. What it means is that everything I thought I knew is a lie. I can't just pretend this is normal. The room fell silent, the weight of his words hanging heavily in the air. Omar felt the ground shift beneath him, the reality of the situation crashing down like a tidal wave. Maybe we need to take a step back, he said, his voice breaking. I can't make any decisions right now. I need time to think. Nadia reached for him, her eyes pleading. Omar, please don't shut us out. We can work through this together. But Omar stepped back, creating distance between them. I don't know if I can trust either of you again. You've both hurt me in ways I never thought possible. Just then, a loud crash echoed from the kitchen, startling them all. Omar's heart raced as he turned to see what had happened. Stay here, he said, his instincts kicking in. He rushed toward the kitchen, his mind racing with possibilities. As he entered, he found a broken vase on the floor, shards of ceramic scattered everywhere. But it wasn't the mess that caught his attention. It was the figure standing in the doorway. Khalid, his expression a mix of concern and urgency. Omar, we need to talk, Khalid said, his voice low. It's about Sarah. Omar's heart sank. What now? Khalid stepped closer, his voice urgent. I've been hearing things. There are people who know about the affair, and they're not happy. You need to be careful. Omar felt a chill run down his spine. What do you mean? There are rumors circulating, and they could affect your business. You need to protect yourself, Khalid warned, his eyes serious. Omar turned back to Nadia and Sarah, the weight of the moment crashing down on him. This isn't just about us anymore. There are bigger issues at play. The room fell silent, the gravity of the situation settling in. Omar knew that the choices he made in the coming moments would not only affect his heart, but also his future. The atmosphere in the room shifted dramatically as Omar processed Khalid's warning. The weight of the situation pressed down on him, and he felt a mix of anger and fear. What do you mean there are people who know? He asked, his voice steady but laced with urgency. Khalid glanced at Nadia and Sarah, then back at Omar. I overheard some conversations at the office. People are talking about the affair, and it's not just gossip. It could affect your reputation and your business dealings. Omar's heart raced. The thought of his professional life crumbling alongside his personal life was almost too much to bear. I can't let this happen, he said, determination flooding his voice. I've worked too hard to let it all slip away. Nadia stepped forward, her eyes wide with concern. Omar, we can figure this out together. We can go public and address the rumors head on. We can show everyone that we're still a family. Sarah nodded, her expression earnest. We can be honest about what happened. It might not fix everything, but it's a start. Omar shook his head, frustration boiling over. You don't understand. This isn't just about us anymore. If people find out, it could ruin everything I've built. I can't risk my business because of this. Khalid placed a hand on Omar's shoulder, grounding him. You need to take control of the narrative. If you don't, others will do it for you, and it won't be pretty. Omar took a deep breath, trying to steady himself. What do you suggest? Let's hold a press conference, Khalid proposed. Address the rumors directly. Be transparent about what's happening. It might be the only way to regain control. Nadia and Sarah exchanged glances, uncertainty flickering in their eyes. Are you sure that's the best approach? Nadia asked hesitantly. It's the only approach, Omar replied, his voice firm. I can't let this destroy everything I've worked for. I need to protect my business and my reputation. As they discussed the logistics of the press conference, Omar felt a sense of resolve building within him. He knew that facing the truth head-on was the only way to regain control of his life. But as they finalized their plans, a sense of dread settled in the pit of his stomach. The fallout from this revelation would be immense, and he couldn't shake the feeling that the worst was yet to come. The day of the press conference arrived, and Omar stood in front of the gathered reporters, his heart pounding in his chest. The bright lights of the cameras felt blinding, and the murmurs of the crowd echoed in his ears. He had never imagined he would find himself in this position, but here he was, ready to confront the truth. As he stepped up to the podium, he took a deep breath, steadying himself. "Thank you all for coming," he began, his voice firm but tinged with emotion. "I know there have been rumors circulating about my marriage and my personal life, and I want to address them directly." The room fell silent, all eyes on him. He could feel the weight of the scrutiny, but he pressed on. "My wife, Nadia, and her best friend Sarah have been involved in a relationship that has caused a great deal of pain and confusion for all of us. I want to be clear. I love Nadia, and I want to work through this, but it will take time and effort from all parties involved." He glanced at Nadia and Sarah, who stood off to the side, their expressions a mix of support and apprehension. "I understand that this is a complicated situation, and I don't expect everyone to understand. But I believe in honesty and transparency, and I hope that by sharing this, we can begin to heal." The reporters began to murmur, and Omar could see the flashes of cameras capturing every moment. "I ask for your understanding and respect as we navigate this difficult time. We are committed to finding a way forward, and I hope you can respect our privacy as we do so." As he finished his statement, a flurry of questions erupted from the crowd. "Omar, how do you plan to move forward? What does this mean for your business? Are you considering divorce?" Omar held up a hand, trying to regain control. "I will not answer questions about my personal life beyond what I've shared. My focus is on healing and rebuilding trust." With that, he stepped away from the podium, feeling a mix of relief and anxiety. The truth was out, and there was no turning back. In the days that followed, the fallout from the press conference was intense. The media frenzy was relentless, but Omar felt a sense of liberation. He had faced the truth head-on, and while the road ahead would be challenging, he was determined to navigate it with integrity. As he sat down with Nadia and Sarah to discuss their next steps, he felt a renewed sense of purpose. "We have a long way to go," he said, his voice steady. "But I believe we can find a way to make this work if we're honest with each other." Nadia nodded, tears in her eyes. "I am so sorry for the pain I've caused, Omar. I want to make this right." Sarah added, "We'll figure this out together. I care about both of you, and I want to support you in any way I can." Omar felt a flicker of hope amidst the chaos. It wouldn't be easy, but he was willing to fight for their relationship, to rebuild the trust that had been shattered. As they began to outline their path forward, Omar realized that freedom wasn't just about escaping the pain of betrayal. It was about embracing the possibility of healing and growth. But as they spoke, a message pinged on Omar's phone, a reminder that the past was never truly behind them. "I know what you did. This isn't over." The threat loomed, a chilling reminder that the battle for their future was just beginning.